In the middle of an open field, a Russian soldier decided to go about his business, unaware that a Ukrainian drone operator was watching him closely. The Ukrainian operator was already in control of the situation, but the enemy felt calm and carefree. He got up and started moving, and at that moment, the operator brought the FPV to the target and delivered the first strike. The strike was very close, and the soldier fell to the ground, but he still found the strength to get up and move on. The Ukrainian fighter did not stop and quickly adjusted the drone's course. The second strike hit the enemy much closer. The explosion knocked him off his feet again. But despite the shock, the enemy stubbornly tried to escape and got back on his feet once more. But his steps were in vain. The operator waited for the moment and sent a third strike. The explosion stopped the soldier. Now he could no longer get up. The Ukrainian drone hovered over the field and began its work of finishing off the enemy. First, it dropped a bomb from the drone. Then, another precise strike, after which there was no doubt left. And then, the operator delivered two final blows, completely eliminating the target. As a result, this soldier will no longer be able to threaten Ukrainian soldiers. Ukrainian operators spot a group of enemy soldiers walking slowly along a road in the middle of an open field. They move calmly, unaware that their movements are being monitored. But suddenly, the enemy begins to retreat, trying to sneak through the tall grass. However, the Ukrainian operators keep them in their sights. The cameras record their every move. Finally, the enemy notices the drone and the soldiers begin to wave their arms chaotically. But it does them no good. In the next moment, an explosion is heard. The FPV drone strikes. 3 Russian soldiers immediately find themselves on the ground, wounded and disoriented. The operators do not stop. They instantly switch to the other 2 enemies who are trying to escape and desperately seeking refuge in the field. One of them stops abruptly and falls to the ground. He sees the drone, tries to roll away, dodge, but in vain. The Ukrainian FPV corrects its trajectory and strikes. After that, it delivers another blow, and the enemy soldier can no longer get up. The drone moves on to another enemy soldier. He is lying on the ground, trying to hide in the grass. The camera slowly approaches, and the drone strikes. As a result, the group of enemy soldiers is stopped. Ukrainian operators are closely monitoring an open area when their camera spots a lone enemy soldier. He is standing near a small puddle, busy with his own business, perhaps drawing water or trying to wash himself. His behavior is carefree. He is completely unaware that his every move is being recorded by Ukrainian drones. The enemy calmly continues his actions. In the next moment, the operator strikes. He tries to move but has no strength. The wounded enemy remains lying in the field, unable to get up. The Ukrainian operator does not stop. He brings the drone in for a second attack. The second strike hits the soldier even harder. The enemy remains in place with no chance of escape, but the operator strikes again. And now this Russian soldier will never rise again and will no longer pose a threat to Ukrainian soldiers. Ukrainian reconnaissance operators spot 2 Russian soldiers standing near a tree in the middle of open terrain from a long distance. In an instant, a drone strikes and the 2 Russian soldiers are wounded. Both enemies fall to the ground, wounded and disoriented. The camera captures the panic. The soldiers discuss something among themselves, gesturing, but make no attempt to flee. Apparently, their injuries prevent them from moving, so they remain near the tree. Ukrainian operators strike again with a drone. One of the Russians falls motionless, unable to do anything. Then Ukrainian operators strike again, and another enemy soldier is also unable to do anything. As a result, they will not be able to interfere with Ukrainian soldiers. Other operators noticed an enemy soldier moving in the open field from a distance. He was probably trying to change position or convey information to his comrades. The operator immediately took control of the situation and approached the enemy with the drone and dropped a bomb, ultimately hitting the enemy. Here, an enemy soldier moves along the trees and goes somewhere. Ukrainian operators immediately notice him, and the drone quickly closes the distance, keeping the enemy in its sights. At some point, the soldier suddenly falls to the ground either from fatigue or trying to hide. He lay motionless for a few seconds as if listening to the surrounding silence, but then began to get up, and in an instant he was hit. And now this enemy soldier will not be able to harm the Ukrainians. Ukrainian operators were carefully scanning the area when their attention was drawn to a lone enemy soldier. He was standing near a tree trunk and at first glance did not seem concerned. From time to time he looked around and adjusted his equipment, but he had no suspicion that he was being watched from somewhere nearby. Suddenly, the enemy began to move. At first he walked slowly, then abruptly broke into a run. His movements were sharp and hurried, as if he suspected something. He pushed through the underbrush, jumping over branches. Panic betrayed his every step. And finally, he reached his two comrades who were waiting nearby. The three of them looked confused. They quickly exchanged a few words, pointed in different directions, as if deciding where to run. But they were not given time to decide. The drone, which had already taken up a favorable position, suddenly went into a dive. There was an explosion. The impact was noticeable, though not entirely accurate. The ground rose in clouds of dust. The soldiers crouched down in fear and began to panic. Trying to make out something, they rushed about, gestured, shouted something to each other, but there was no longer any organization. In the end, they decided to retreat, went out onto the dirt road and slowly moved on, without even looking back, just walking along the road, probably not even thinking that Ukrainian operators were watching them. But the operators saw their every move. The next attack came suddenly. One of the soldiers immediately fell to the ground, and the others froze for a moment, looking at him, but did not even try to help him. Then, instead of helping, they simply started walking on, leaving their comrade behind. Their steps were uncertain, but they continued walking. When they reached a tree, they stopped, hoping to hide, or perhaps wanting to rest. They leaned toward each other, whispering about something, pointing in different directions with their hands, but Ukrainian operators were watching them here too, and the drone was already very close. It hovered quietly in the air, and then a new strike, which they probably did not expect. One of the soldiers managed to jump out of the way, but the other was hit and could not get up. His partner rushed to him, knelt down as if trying to help or at least check if he was alive. He gestured, walked around his wounded partner, and it was unclear whether he wanted to help him at all. The cameraman did not hesitate. The drone approached sharply and delivered another strike. The explosion covered them both at once. After that, no one got up. The operators watched the strike zone closely for a few more seconds to make sure the enemy was neutralized. Then they did a follow-up strike and delivered the final blow. From now on, this enemy group will never again be able to threaten Ukrainian soldiers.